Yeah, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to pursue collaboration to promote their content?
Not seeing someone in your space as competition, seeing them as an opportunity to partner and kind of moving past that competitiveness of it and really leaning into those people who you might look at as competitors, figuring out who they are, but then following them, commenting them, liking their stuff. And then at some point you slip in the request. But at that point, they know you as someone who's supportive.
Hello, welcome everybody. It is me again, John Santiago, your host of the Videocraft Show presented by Video Husky. And in case you are new around here, every week I talk with video creators about their stories, strategies, and experiences of building an online audience, primarily through video. And my guest this week is Michelle Fortin. Michelle is one half of the comedic duo Leeann and Michelle. And since 2017, these two Phoenix-based moms have been making viewers laugh through their parodies and sketches. Now, they rose to internet fame through a variety of videos that originally went viral on Facebook. One of them pokes fun at multi-level marketing and the pressure that people face from their friends to buy products. Another brought the funny by parodying one of HGTV's biggest personalities and even caught her attention too. These videos, plus many others, have led Leeann and Michelle to amass more than 40 million views from viewers all over the world. Their comedic chops have caught the attention of the mainstream media as well, earning them coverage from outlets such as USA Today, the New York Times, and even the Today Show. In this episode, I chat with Michelle, who joins me solo because Leeann is currently on maternity leave after giving birth to her fourth child. Michelle and I talk about a variety of topics, including what it was like to find out that one of their parodies was watched by a big-name celebrity, Michelle's background as a journalist and how that prepared her for a career as a creator, and also the value of going on the creator journey with a partner. But before we get into this conversation, I want to remind all of you, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you are enjoying all of our content. Hit the notification bell too, and subscribe to the podcast wherever it is that you get your podcasts. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, CastBox, wherever it is that you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us. So I will go ahead and wrap this up and toss it to my conversation and interview with Michelle Fortin of Leeann and Michelle. Michelle Fortin, thank you for joining me on this episode, this edition of the Videocraft Show presented by Video Husky. And we were just chatting before I started the recording here, and we had some technical issues. And I'm glad that it was a very simple technical issue that we were able to solve quickly. If you want to let the viewers and listeners know what that technical issue is, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I couldn't hear you. Which is a problem. But then it was just the volume was not turned up on my speaker. So easy solution. Isn't that fun when it's an easy, simple solution?
I was for anybody who's listening, like I was telling Michelle that there's always, when there's always a technical glitch that happens, I always kind of default to like my devices, my technology. And so when the problem is just like the guest's volume wasn't up loud enough, that is like a godsend to me.
Yes, it is. And you're so nice. You're, it's not you. It must be me. That's such a nice way to approach it. When inside you're probably like, girl, something's going on over there.
No, my first inclination is to kind of think it really is to just think that it's my fault initially.
Do we need to have a therapy session about this? Because I feel like there might be some issues.
Maybe this is what this podcast will be. This particular episode will just be like my insecurities as a podcast host. talk to guests about all the fears and worries that I have. This is not easy to do. So I don't know if people who watch and listen to this, like this is a very, it's fun for me, but at the same time, having an engaging, lighthearted, fun conversation for an hour or so and sometimes longer.
Right.
Ooh, it's a challenge, but I try to take on that challenge every day.
Right. And when the technology is not working, it complicates it. And then, that compounds. And yeah, we were just saying how sometimes, and I looked a little bit at your background, looks like you and I have a similar background in news. And the worst is when you go and record an interview and it goes really well, and then you get back and something was wrong. The sound didn't record, or there's too many glitches, and you have to go back and do it again. And there's just no way to capture it that second time. So when you can work out a simple technical issue in the beginning and smooth sailing, hopefully not going to from there. This
is a little bit of an aside, somewhat related to you as a comedian, but I'm curious, do you ever listen to Mark Maron's podcast?
No.
Well, Mark Maron, he has this he had interviewed Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt it was when they were promoting Once Upon a Time in Hollywood a couple years ago.
Oh,
and that movie. He freaked out because he thought that his recorder wasn't recording. Like, he thought he started the interview. I think he thought the recorder wasn't working, or he was having technical issues. And he is just, he can be quite neurotic of a personality. And it was kind of endearing, though, to hear him go through it, in the conversation with them, just freaking out. And Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio were just laughing their butts off, because it's just to see him squirm like that.
Oh man, can you imagine? That's because that's not happening again. There's no rescheduling those two, all those calendars. Oh man, that would be, and I know that feeling. I've been in those moments where I've never interviewed Brad Pitt or Leonardo DiCaprio, so maybe not at that level, but you're trying to capture something and you have that pit feeling in your stomach. Oh, shoot, I forgot something. It's the worst. I'll have to check him out. I have it out here.
Yeah, you'll have to look up that particular episode. He's very honest about it, because he does a little monologue before he goes into the interview, just kind of recapping and telling people what the conversation was like. And he was like, I was freaking out. Thought the recorder wasn't working. And I have this time booked with two of the biggest stars in Hollywood. What am I going to do?
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that vulnerability is so great when you hear other people who you admire, having those kind of issues, and being honest about it is so refreshing.
Yeah, no, it just kind of it reminds us that we're all human beings here. So, Michelle, obviously you are one half of the comedic duo Leeann and Michelle, and Leeann is, for everybody out there watching and listening, Leeann is actually on maternity leave, so I have the pleasure of speaking with you for this full hour. So I want to talk to you about your background first and foremost.
Sure.
I'm curious, when you were growing up, did you ever think that you would be doing comedy?
Oh, no. I always loved communication in some form. And my initial career was I was a television news journalist, reporter, and anchor. And so being on stage or being in front of people was always a comfort level. And I loved public speaking and a little acting and whatnot. And I obviously love to laugh. Everybody loves to laugh. But comedy never really occurred to me as something I could do until I turned 40.
Oh, wow.
Can you believe that? My comedy aspect of my communication skill set didn't come about until then.
You mentioned there that you worked in broadcast journalism, and as you alluded to earlier, a moment ago, we do actually have similar backgrounds. I myself also worked in broadcast journalism, although in radio. I went to a TV station once, and I was just like, I'm not doing this. There's too many things going on in this control room. I mean, there's so many parts.
And I feel that way about a radio suite. I wouldn't be able to sit in front of a board and do live radio.
See, that's the funny thing is when I worked in radio, that was my job. My first job was I was the board operator who was controlling the entire show.
So many buttons.
The thing I loved about it, I thought of it as a video game, though. It's once you know the buttons on the controller, then it's cool. It's automatic. But I just thought going to a television stage, because when I worked in radio, there was an anchor from one of the local TV stations in Sacramento, the market that I came up in and worked at. He would come in and fill in for our afternoon news anchor occasionally, and he took a liking to me and said, hey, why don't you come over to the TV station and see if you want to, maybe work as a camera operator or do some script writing or stuff like that. And when I went and actually got to see the behind the scenes inner workings of a television station, I'm like, oh, this isn't just you just show up and just start talking much like radio. There's so many things involved, so many moving parts. And I'm wondering if how that experience has impacted or influenced what you're doing now with content creation?
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. I think when I am dating myself, if people know the broadcasting industry, but when I started really one-man band, that terminology, so that's, a reporter who carries their camera and does all the shooting and editing, was really, really new and really wasn't totally the thing that it is now. So I had the blessing of working with really good photographers and kind of learning to trust them and, to get the shot, to get the interview framed right, and go into editing bay and getting it all done. So, and I have those skill sets. I can shoot and edit myself, but, kind of learning that craft and watching true photographers, I learned so much about lighting and framing, and that was such a great experience for me to go through that. And obviously, working one-on-one with people and strong personalities in the news business, that you don't get drawn to that business if you're really quiet wallflower. But so that was definitely beneficial for me, and then the ability to, I would say, one of the best things I've taken from the news business into content creation for YouTube and other platforms is being fast. We would shoot an entire, what we call a news package, so 90-minute to 2-minute piece during our course of our day. Sometimes we did 2. And we would turn it around for the news. So we would edit within about 2 hours, sometimes shorter. In breaking news situations, a lot less time. And so now I don't like going slow. I like shooting something and turning it right around, which, as I know, a struggle for some people. But that's actually my comfort level is let's just get this done and get it out there. I don't like things kind of hanging out there, not done. And that working on a deadline and getting things turned around really fast is one of the biggest things that's still with me in that journalism background that I use today.
Yeah, I felt that today myself, like just trying to write up like an intro for you. I'll be recording, that after this interview, but just I've been taking on a lot more lately, and I'm like, geez, I gotta get back to like my journalism roots and just start writing fast again. And that's something you learn from that.
And it's such a great it's such a great skill set. That's, you can use it in social media and, and you have to write really smart. You have to write, I was just talking to someone about this yesterday, but it's not like writing a research paper or even a book. I mean, you have to write conversationally, you have to write tight, use the least amount of words as possible. It's a really good writing skill. And then, having that deadline, being driven by that deadline, if you are content creator and you set your own deadlines, sometimes they're really easy to just keep pushing back, but if you're wired that way, and nope, this is the deadline, this is when my videos go live, I have a hard out on this, then it's so helpful, I think. And if I didn't have that innately in me or trained into me through my journalism background, it would, this whole concept would just still be an idea that I'd be thinking about and not having actually done anything with.
Right. So what drew you to journalism initially?
Loving to speak. I'm an only child, so I've always people always just listen to me.
I can resonate with that. I'm an only child as well.
Yeah. Are you? Yeah. Oh my gosh. The only children unite. I never was want for an audience. I always had people willing to listen to me. And I'm a gifted communicator. A lot of times public speaking is hard for a lot of people. And for me, it always came naturally, and I enjoy it. So that seemed like a natural fit for me career-wise. And so that's what I pursued. And I did speech and debate in college. It was my scholarship. I don't want to brag. It was really hip and cool. I was in the speech and debate team. I got my master's degree and went on to do about 10 years in the news business. And it was just a really great fit for my personality. And then I took some years where I stepped off camera and I did media relations. So I was training other people to go on camera. And it was good, but it was hard because I could do it so easily. And it was hard to train other people to do it when I could just be like, you just let me do it. And then I actually, in my therapy session with my therapist, she was like, do you think maybe it's time for you to get back on camera? And I remember thinking, I'd only ever thought about the news business and I was out of that and didn't really want to get back into that. And then, I was like, wow, that's an idea. Yeah, I would like to get back in front of the camera. And kind of that just seed kept growing. And then, YouTube and content creation became something that I was able to do. So it was a really great great outlet for me.
So how long was that for you when that seed was planted by your therapist to like, hey, maybe you should get back in front of the camera? Like, how long did it take for you to, for that to percolate and actually manifest itself with the launch of your YouTube channel with Leeann?
Not long, but not intentionally. Didn't happen overnight intentionally, but it really was maybe a few months because I had done this. I had given myself the gift of refiguring out margin in my life. At one point, I was way overtaxed and stressed, and I had kind of retreated and given myself what I called my reset the rhythm year, where I just kind of said no to everything and figured out where margin was. And then during that time, I saw these openings in my schedule. I gave myself the gift of taking an improv comedy class it's kind of a fun thing to do for myself. And then through that met Leeann, and we started performing live comedy, and then started, we both had this kind of need for this outlet to writing parodies and just kind of doing some sketch comedy. And so that was we started that, and then, we just we didn't really expect it to take off, to be honest. It was just something that we needed to do as moms. We needed this kind of creative outlet. She's an actress, so it was natural for us to do this. And then it just took off. We had a couple back-to-back viral videos, and then we looked at each other. We're like, okay, I guess this is our thing. But it really, when that conversation with my therapist really gave me, not confidence. Confidence is not something I'm lacking, to be honest. I try to be humble, but it's more just permission, and kind of that click in my mind that, yeah, I can train people. And I still love training people to go on camera or speak. I teach, I'm an adjunct professor at a local university, and I teach public speaking and other things. But having that outlet for myself and realizing that wasn't selfish or that I wasn't outdated, that I still have valid things to share with the world, it just gave me permission to open that door and walk right through it.
So being on camera, that has always something that's been natural for you. Like, do you ever experience nerves? Yeah. Have you ever experienced nerves when it comes to being in front of the camera?
There's been a few kind of very specific situations that were new or different in that I can think I could literally probably count them on less than one hand. But overall, no. And I realize that that's not a lot of people's experience, but being on camera is easier, in my opinion, than being on stage, although I still enjoy that. And also the background of television, and, you have to make mistakes on live television to improve. You can't just, do it in front of your mirror and actually get better. You have to kind of pull that Band-Aid off and make it uncomfortable and force yourself to get better. Like any creator or speaker or actor would tell you, you have to actually practice that craft and put it out there. But no, I really don't get nervous at all. But, I do work with people who do, and I have a lot of tactics in my tool belt to help people. But I myself it's just been kind of a weird quirk about me.
Man, you are lucky. That is amazing. Do
you struggle
Sometimes
with that?
I do. I think once like the camera goes on or whatnot, like I can remember being in high school and feeling like I like to ham it up, like when I was in choir and stuff. I was in choir back in high school. And so I did like a couple solos, on stage and whatnot. But I still would feel like, for me, I feel the nerves, but I just have reframed it in my mind to just not be something that hinders me from like doing what I do, like getting behind this microphone or getting on camera. Like there's just like that little bit of anxiety before things start going once you start hitting record. But once you're in like the middle of a conversation like this, then it's just like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
We're in it now. You can't really go back.
Right. You cannot. Yeah. Once it's out there, you can't take it back. You have to be careful about how you choose your words. But yeah, no, I agree. So it sounds like you had the stage background like me too, and a little bit of a nerd flex there with show choir.
Yeah, I did we had in high school. It was called choristers, and we had to wear like really nice, like formal attire. Like I was wearing a tuxedo, and I think the girls were wearing.
Did you have gloves?
No, that was like handbell choir. That was handbell choir. Hands? They had the gloves. Okay. I wasn't in handbell. I was in jazz choir too. That was cool. Wow. We had to wear like black shirts, like black dress shirts and what. I don't know why we dressed like we were going to a funeral for jazz choir.
That's hilarious. Well, see, now I could not if I had to sing on stage in a comedic situation, bring it on. And if I had to stand up and lead someone in the national anthem or something, I would get nervous because singing is not my thing.
Yeah.
So kudos to you on that one, but I would not.
So,
do it.
So when you are, I'm curious, when you do teach people how to be on camera or essentially be on stage, what are some of those tools and tactics that you advise them to try?
So first of all, you have to realize that anxiety is natural. There's lots of studies that show that people would rather die than speak in public. Yeah. So it's important to recognize that you're feeling that, but everyone else in the room is feeling it for you. A lot of people are nervous on your behalf. And that's an energy that's coming from your body, and you have to learn how to channel it. So you can channel it into your brain and just let everything get jumbled, or you can channel it into, I got to let this be adrenaline that I put into my whatever I'm saying, or my body movements, or keeping my body still, depending on, what if you're too distracting with your movements. But that's one, there's tactics and, making sure you're well prepared, that you're prepared and, several days in advance, not just procrastinating till the night or the morning before. So you are well versed in what you're saying. And one of the most important things that I teach my students and that I use for my own speaking engagements is I only ever speak, and I only ever want my students to speak on things they know about. I don't want anyone to go and have to research quantum physics when they're an art major and speak about that. That's unfair, and that would put anybody in a really nerve-wracking situation. But if you're going to speak about music therapy or something that's in your genre, even if you have a moment where you forget what you're going to say, you're speaking about something you know a lot about, and you'll be able to fill that silence until you get back on your feet. So some little tactics like that are really important. Also, improv comedy. Yeah. I have to tell you, improv comedy, it really teaches you how to work that muscle of, I don't know what's coming out of my mouth next, but I have to say something. Yeah. And so, when you work on that muscle, is really important. And I advocate improv classes for anybody in any line of work is really important skill set. It helps you in conversation. It helps you get to really understand people because you become a better listener. And then it helps you be able to fill those awkward moments because you've worked that muscle that you become more confident in thinking, okay, I can enter this conversation or enter this speaking engagement because even if I forget, I have that muscle work something's going to come up. I'm going to be able to come up with something, and you need to practice that and learn some techniques on how to do that. But improv is a big one too that helps a lot.
I've thought about doing improv at some point. I've been curious about it in the past. Like I know I interviewed one other YouTuber who actually did improv at one point, and I think that's helped him a lot in his now full-time career as a content creator. Yeah. It's very interesting to me. I mean, even doing a podcast is kind of like improv, even though I have like notes and whatnot, but I still, will go off the rails from time to time and go in different directions. But I'm really curious too about what is the difference between being on stage relative to being behind or being in front of the camera. How is that experience different?
It's really different for comedy. So for news, there's really not many situations that you're doing a newscast in front of a live audience. Yeah. It's usually just to the camera. So, but when you're performing comedy to a live audience, there's so much energy. You have to be on the whole time. You can't take breaks and edit things, right? And then they're laughing and you're kind of getting real-time feedback on how things are going or whatever. We do improv. So whatever character choice you've made is hitting or not hitting, in real time. Whereas on camera, you don't have that. I mean, Leeann and I, we work with a videographer, so it's usually three of us in the room. And, we know certain things. Like I've seen some videos, the raw videos, and the camera starts to shake because our videographer's laughing. So that's always a good sign. But, so sometimes especially in the beginning, it was hard to know what was going to hit just because you're just kind of going off your gut. And you have to throw some stuff at the wall, and not all of it's going to stick. But you have to do that in order to figure out what does stick and what resonates with your audience. So now we're in a much better rhythm, and our shoots are a lot faster, and we can get a lot more done in a day because we've kind of finally figured out that the sweet spots of what's going to hit. But in the beginning, it was harder. And I would have, at that point, definitely preferred a live audience because just for that real-time feedback and the energy. And I'm an extrovert. So, and Leeann is an introvert. So we come off the stage and she just heads back to the hotel room. See you later. And I'm like, all the people come to me. I love it. I can't get off that that high of, the extrovert being fed by all the people, and it takes me hours to kind of calm down and finally get to sleep. I love that. And you don't have that when you're, just sitting behind a camera and trying to produce content. But for me, and I'll speak for Leeann too, our mission is just to bring a few moments of joy to people, like give them a little bit of hit of dopamine, let them kind of forget their worries and kind of, engage in the laughter. And a lot of the humor that we do is kind of poking fun at specific personality types. And so people kind of like that, kind of self-deprecating, makes them laugh. Oh, shoot, yes. I do that. And so knowing that what we're doing is going to provide that moment for someone is great. But yeah, I think the main difference is obviously the energy in the room when you're doing live versus just on camera. Yeah.
I mean, you're able to feed off of what the crowd is, how they're feeling, and how do you deal with it when the crowd isn't reacting in a way that you would like, right? If I'm sure you face rooms where it's just stone cold. Like none of the jokes are hitting.
Yeah. No. We're hilarious and we've never had a bad audience ever. I don't know what you're talking about.
You're the greatest comedians of all time.
Ever in the history of no. Oh, no. We have had, and most of it is situations that we should have, we've learned over time, but bad audio, people can't hear you. They booked the room in the middle of a happy hour, so no one's paying. And improv is not stand up. Like stand up, you can dip in and out of and pick up jokes. Whereas at improv, you actually have to observe how the characters are developing. And we go for one big joke at the end, not necessarily little jokes, right? It has to build. And if people aren't paying attention, you don't get those big laughs. So it's hard. It's really hard. And I've actually had to lean a lot on Leeann because she's the one with years more experience doing this. And so she'll say to me, we're going to have to cut the show early. It's just not working, and cut our losses. And this is just, they'd rather talk to each other than listen to us. So let's just, wrap it up with this next thing, even though it's half of what we planned. And just kind of having to do that. And, and obviously there's some times where we can turn things around and just get bigger, get sillier. It's hard when the audience is not responding. It's definitely hard. But then there's always somebody who thinks it's funny. Yeah. And so then sometimes at the end you end up just kind of playing to that one person or, the couple that's there, a couple of friends that are just so into it. You just end up having a show for them. But, we did a whole podcast actually about our worst shows ever. We talked about, there was one show where Leeann, she just had her fourth baby. That's what she's out on maternity leave. She was pregnant with her third, and she fell on stage in the middle of one of our games.
Wait, while she was pregnant?
And while she's pregnant, like 8 months pregnant. And she caught herself on her knees, but a pregnant woman doesn't fall on stage without everything stopping. And, and we just couldn't recover. That was one of the worst ones.
It's just everyone just gasped like, oh my God, this pregnant lady is down for the count.
Because then you're like, is she okay? Is the baby okay? And our typical audience is moms. So then everyone's mom. All of a sudden you slip into mom mode and everyone wants to rush the stage and make sure she's okay. And she was fine. But she had to break character and tell everyone she was fine. And it was hard to recover from that one. But yeah, we've had our moments for sure.
Now, you mentioned there, of course, that your audience is typically moms because you both are mothers yourself. I'm really curious how your kids feel about you being a YouTuber. Because when you think about YouTube and content creation, it's like a young person's game. It seems like, or it's like every time I read like creator newsletters or look up creator news, it's always about like some Gen Zer who's like 19 years old selling an NFT for like $5 billion and buying like an island or something in the middle of the South Pacific or whatever. And they got to 1 million subscribers in a year and they're 20, but like, I'm really
I know.
Your kids, like, this is what they're growing up on, right? Like, this is their pop culture is YouTube. So like, but
it really is.
But your content is not like targeting their demographic.
No, but our kind of thing that we hang our hat on is our content is family friendly. So we never have, there might be an innuendo or two that goes way above a kid's head, but there's no bad language. There's no sexual content. There's no nothing. You can watch it with your kids, with your mother-in-law in the same room, and you're not going to be uncomfortable. So that in that sense that we don't create content for kids, but we have a lot of kids that watch our content, and a lot of parents that watch our content with their kids in the room, and they really like our content because of that. But yeah, no, my kids, I have a daughter who's 8, my son is 10. My daughter is any kind of DIY or cooking YouTube channel like Rosanna Casino. She's obsessed with that. And so the fact that I'm on YouTube, she thinks I'm that level. Yeah.
Do they really think you're? Think you're that level?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. They do. They actually, it's so bizarre. But a lot of our content is around Enneagram, which is a personality type, which is way over my sweet children's heads. But they've seen so much of it. They've been exposed. They've been in our videos. They're kind of in the background a lot when we record. They want to watch every single video, which I'm like, this is really not for you. And I'm on YouTube and they think that's, they tell all their friends at school, my mom's a YouTuber. It's just really sweet. It's funny. And then of course they think that they want to do it. And so they want to do the toy opening.
Unboxing.
Gifts, the toy, like the video, the box unboxing. And I
You're like, moms don't got the budget for that. I can't be buying all the toys.
I'll just set up an iPad and like record them doing it. I'll never edit it. I'm like, oh my God, it's doing really well on YouTube. You guys are great.
Oh my gosh. So
no, they love it. They really love it. All 4 of our kids, or all 6 of our combined children. Well, the baby hasn't done much yet. He's pretty useless at the moment, not sleeping. But they're all in our videos and have pretty good resumes now, acting wise, because of all the stuff we forced them to do.
Yeah.
Not forced, actually. They love it. So
that's very cool. How do you think about that in terms of having your kids in the videos and featuring them in the content? Because on one hand, it's great because it's a family activity. You guys get to do it together with each other and make something, right? It's like making home movies for like the rest of the world to see. But at the same time, the rest of the world sees it, right? And like we're living in this era now where like family photos and home movies are seen by everybody, and like everybody has a chance to become micro famous. And I wonder if that's something that you think about as well in terms of like exposure for your kids on your content.
All the time. And my son is the oldest of our brood. He's 10. Leeann has a 9-year-old son. And we're starting to get to the age where he wants to see pictures before I post them. Which is new, and I respect that.
Where did he learn that?
And I don't post.
Is it just something culturally now that the kids just know, like, hey, I gotta prove this first?
I think so, and also that in our community, like all of our friends follow us, so we'll go out, and for a while, people would recognize me because they saw my kids, and my kids are kind of distinctive. My daughter has crazy curly red hair, and can spot her from a mile away. My son has this cute little glasses, and so they kind of spot them, and then those are Michelle's kids. They come up to them and say, "Oh, it's your mom, Michelle Fortin," and so they kind of knew that. And then he just he's entering 5th grade next year and is probably getting a little bit more conscious about that. So it's always in the back of my mind, and I've told them they don't have to do anything. They don't have to be in any videos. But they beg to be in them, and they really love it. So at this point, we're kind of letting them drive it. I'll speak for myself on that. I'm letting them drive it, and as long as it's fun, and obviously I'm going to protect them in the content, right? And then we'll keep doing it. But if they ever want to bow out, I'm not going to be upset about that. Now, Leeann and her husband are 2 of the most recognized commercial actors in the Phoenix market. They own an acting studio, Deering Acting Studio in North Phoenix. They teach kid and adult classes. And so their 2 oldest ones are prolific actors. They're at 7 and 9. And so that's just for them. I don't know that I'm sure that they will have a choice, but it's more the family business over there. So it's a little, there's a little less of that kind of concern just because it's been innate in them since they were born. That's just what they do. They act, and my kids have been a part of this now for years. So this is kind of what we do too. But yeah, as a mom, of course, your first concern is, my concern is who's going to see these images of my kids. And, there's so many creeps out there, but I'm a woman of faith too. And I know I'm making good choices, and I trust that my kids are going to be protected, and we take a lot of measures to make sure that happens. And, at this point, it's a blessing that we get to do this and that our kids are excited about it and not embarrassed. I know that's coming. So we're going to ride this train.
In the next 5 years or so, as they become teenagers, they're just going to be like, I regret everything we did with you, Mom. Like, we don't.
Yes. Delete it
private all those videos, unlist them from YouTube.
Right.
But it's so wild to me though. I think about that, and I've had this conversation. I've talked about this topic with a couple other creators as well who have families.
Yeah.
One of the creators I spoke to, he's a very popular travel vlogger who focuses on travel around California, and he just had 2 kids. 2 twin babies, and it's something that he thinks about all the time and these days in terms of, well, how much is too much in terms of putting my kids in the content. At the same time, it's been beautiful for him and for others, I'm sure, like again, like you, where you get to make these, you get to have these memories that you can look back on like years from now. Right. Granted, you're sharing it with the world, but you still have that opportunity to look back at these special times in your life.
Yeah. It is. It's definitely, it puts a stamp on things, and it's fun to see. If you look at videos that we produced in the beginning, how little our kids are, and because that kind of last 5 years has been so much change and physical appearance and everything with them. So it's been fun. But yeah, that's, as a parent, of course, that's always in the back of your mind, protecting your kids. And, I do worry about that. But at the same time, I think we've taken good steps at this point. Now I'm going to not sleep tonight. So thank you for that, John. I'm extra worried about it. Sorry.
You just we'll strike that from the record. Like, my bad. I had to bring it to that level and get you paranoid. Terrible podcast hosting on my end.
No.
So let's talk a little more about your process, right? We've touched on this a little bit with you and Leeann, how you create content. I'm curious how you two brainstorm ideas. Is there a process for that in terms of like capturing ideas and then bringing those ideas to life? Where do you find inspiration for the content that you're making on your channel?
Well, the inspiration comes from everyday life. I mean, we just try and look at things that are funny to us and kind of try and make them bigger so they're funnier to more people. We just kind of came up with this idea, for example, in the spring of 2020 when everyone's suddenly homeschooling and no one wanted to. Well, Leeann is a homeschooling mom. She's been homeschooling. And so we did, and I would never, unless I was in a global pandemic and forced to. So we came up with this homeschool rap, and we did an original, did we do an original song or maybe a parody? And we just rapped about, how like everyone was mocking homeschoolers. Well, now you're calling your homeschool mom friends for tips, and so, and that was, hilarious to our audience at the time because we were all kind of in that same boat of, oh shoot, I made fun of you for being a homeschool mom and now I need you to help me this out. That's, and so that's kind of a lot of times for the two of us, how we work is I come up with the idea. And if it's a good idea, Leeann runs with it. And sometimes in order to kind of encourage her to get her juices flowing, I'll come up with a script or a song lyrics. And then we joke, like she rewrites every single word, because that's her skill set. She's a musician and better at timing of, all the lyrics of a song. And then we'll come together and then she'll pass it back to me and I'll do the shot sheet and arrange the shoot and production. I am really a business side of things and we lean into her creative side is really well blossomed. So our line is, without me, nothing would get done, but without her, nothing would be done well. So we're a good partnership in that. So that's kind of how that works with songs and sketches. And then our Enneagram content, which is our kind of more consistent content, especially over the last year. We just kind of try to think of situations that everyday people are in, and then we put the Enneagram numbers, we act out the different personality types. And we have I have 4 that I do. There's 9 Enneagram types. I have 4 that I act out and she has 5 that she acts out. So we'll just say, okay, on our next shoot date, we're going to shoot Enneagram types ordering food at restaurants. And then we just and if I have an idea that I think, Enneagram 5 would do, I might say, hey, don't forget to include this. I think an Enneagram 5 would do that. She'll do the same for me. But we really kind of independently write those. And then we come together to film, and then we'll kind of feed each other some lines as we think of them. But that's been helpful because as moms of little kids, like our schedule is kind of hard sometimes to nail down. So in the olden days, we used to be able to get together and kind of have these writing sessions and half-day sessions where we'd sit and write and we'd come up with great content. That can't happen in this life stage. So kind of learning how to divide things up and kind of then come to the shoot date with each of us having done our own homework. That's what works for us right now.
So in terms of communicating those ideas, I imagine a lot of it is just happening like digitally. Like, are you guys just like texting each other saying, hey, I have this idea, like,
Yes.
and then you toss it over to Leeann and she runs with it?
Texting and then email, you know, if there's a whole script we need to send, we'll Google Docs or email. Yeah. It's mostly, it honestly, a lot of it is, I don't see her side of the script until we get together. We just trust each other. And that's the great thing about being birthed from improv is there's no good improv that happens if you don't trust your partner. And so we've come to such a point of trusting each other with our abilities and our strengths. There's actually been a few times, not very often, where we have to record independently and then our editor will edit it together. And I don't even see it till it's, you know, ready. I'm usually the one who gives final approval on things. And I just trust it's going to come together because she does what she does so well. Yeah. So sometimes it's just that we just completely work independently on those two parts, but they work, and our audience knows which ones that we do. They've come to, you know, appreciate that. I did a video. I collabed with another YouTuber because Leeann's on maternity leave, and the way we structured it, I had to act out a couple of the numbers that Leeann usually does, and our audience loved that. They were like, "Oh, it was so funny. Leeann usually does that one, and you know, it was fun to see you doing that one." And so it's just kind of become the rhythm that's worked in this season for us right now.
How long did it take you to find that rhythm with each other, to have that trust? I mean, you two met like it was almost like serendipitously, right? And was it just kind of an instantaneous connection from the start, or did that take time?
We like to joke that we went from our first date to getting married in like, you know, embarrassingly fast paced. Like our families, it was a real relationship, would have been like, whoa, like everybody calm down. What happened was I graduated from this improv class, and someone had asked if I would come perform comedy at a mother's group at a church. Actually, it was my home church. And you can't do improv alone. And I knew of Leeann because we had mutual friends, and I knew that they had the acting studio. I knew she was an actress. So I reached out through a mutual friend and I said, I know you do improv. You're probably really funny. I just learned improv and I like think I'm funny. Do you want to do this show together? And she just said, yeah, sure. Let's do it. And so we got together a few times to rehearse for the show, and the show went really well. And then it was just a matter of, you know, going from there. And then, like I mentioned earlier, that was in March of 2017. That summer, we worked on a couple of parodies, and in August and September of that year, we had back-to-back viral videos, so over 1 million views overnight. Not on YouTube, unfortunately. We weren't established on YouTube yet. That was on Facebook. I mean, national news coverage, you know, all sorts of this stuff, you know, obviously huge platform growth overnight almost. So that's when we looked at each other. We're like, okay, I think we have something here. So we started our LLC and, you know, kind of started looking at this more as a business. And then it's gone through a lot of changes. You know, in the beginning, we were thinking live shows, so a lot of travel, and we've traveled all over the country doing live shows, and so that was kind of the mission behind the videos, was build our platform so then we can book gigs across the country. Well, then Leeann kept having more babies. Like, she just can't stop herself. And so that's had to be tailored back because it's just not feasible or comfortable right now for this life stage. And you know, I want to be with my partner. I don't, you know, there are certain things I'll do on my own or with someone else, but we're trying to grow together, you know, as much as we can, but we're different people. And if anyone knows the Enneagram, I'm an Enneagram 8, wing 7. She's an Enneagram 4, wing 5. Those are two of the hardest people to relate to each other, but we've played to strengths, our strengths, and we know our weaknesses, so we can kind of complement. And through that so quickly, and then we had to figure out, okay, well, you know, so then we did live shows. We want to kind of look more, and then we were chasing clients night and day, trying to do custom comedy for businesses. And we did a lot of that. And then that's just a lot of work, you know, the sales side of things. And, you know, and then thankfully our YouTube, we were just keeping YouTube as kind of a library. We were like, we're going to think about leaving YouTube later, but we posted every video to YouTube, but we never gave it any time of day. And then finally I'm like, I went to a couple conferences. Like, I really got to figure out YouTube. And then it got monetized. And that has been, you know, a much better, easier way to kind of, in this life stage, sustain what we're doing and keep it a business. Because at any time it can be pushed back to a hobby. We're ready to do that. But things keep happening. So we think, okay, this is still, we're supposed to be doing something with this. So
yeah, that's one thing I was curious about as I was doing research on YouTube, is that I didn't know that the videos that you had go super viral were done through Facebook. So I'm really curious about what it was about Facebook. Like, why choose Facebook initially as like the platform to distribute the content?
Like in the beginning, we were not anticipating anything going viral. And young moms, Facebook is a real connection point. So, it's very female oriented. It does skew a little older. I know as content creators, we think, we got to create specific content for feedback that skews to a little older audience possibly, but there really is a good sizable audience there of moms. And so that's kind of where we got our start. And so we just created a Facebook page because that's just what everybody does, right? And then we just posted it there and it just took off. So people were sharing it in moms groups and, all these moms things. And we joke about it now. We did a champagne toast. The first video that went viral, it was a parody of a Coldplay song and it was all about multi-level marketing companies and how people slip into your DMs and it hit a nerve. We lost a few friends over that who were, real upset about what we made fun of their essential oils or whatever. But, so and we toasted like a few hours after we posted it hit 17,000 views. And that for us, that was sweet. Like, awesome. 17,000 views. Well, then by the next day it was at 1 million. We're like, what's happening? What do we do now? Like, we already did the champagne toast. We toast like diamonds. I don't know. So it was really not expected. And so we just rode the Facebook wave because why not? Like, we didn't know anything about YouTube and we had we were kind of doing Instagram as well, but we just kept writing the YouTube, the Facebook, and but there was no way to monetize that. So it was all. This is before you could. So it was all just platform growing. So we were just thinking, okay, we gotta. And the only way we really knew how to leverage that was selling, custom comedy and then sharing it with our audience to sponsors. And we did that. We still do a little bit of that, but it's definitely not something I chase down. It's more when certain opportunities arise, we'll have those conversations. But I was chasing down clients there for a while and that's just a whole other beast. But so that's kind of why we rode the Facebook wave. And then once we kind of got YouTube dialed in, I don't even pay attention to Facebook anymore because I am not. Yeah, it's the algorithm. It's just not working for us anymore. But probably because we decided to switch our focus to YouTube because it's just a better platform for our content. Facebook favors a certain length, whereas our videos really need to be longer. And as you know, YouTube audiences like a longer video, and it just has worked out better for our content. But that's why we did Facebook in the beginning, simply because we didn't know what else to do, and it seemed to be
so. When you start posting stuff on Facebook, was there any kind of like strategy in terms of like getting it in front of the right people? Because I was curious about this too, because I know that you also have a background in PR. So I wonder if you use some of those some of like your knowledge and tactics and strategy and apply that to getting your content in front of the right people.
For sure. So public relations, PR, so many people think about it as media relations. So getting the media to cover your content, but public relations is relating to publics, right? So where your niche following is, whatever that group of public is, targeting that. And I definitely did that. Thankfully, kind of after our video went viral, we kind of got connected to some other moms in the same space, other mom comedians with bigger followings. And we would partner with them to share each other's content. And that helped us grow. And we would just like let each other know when we had a new video popping up and we would, make sure to comment and like and share. And, I had, several of them kind of come alongside and show us the ropes, which is great because it's a very saturated space. But I don't really sense a lot of competition. It's, everyone thinks everything's funny and there really is room for everybody. It's been our experience, which has been awesome. So that was really kind of our strategy. And then we would get into it. So we figured out the length, the time of day that our viewers or our audience was tuning in and watching, and how to word things so that it was popped up in the algorithm. When we had it figured in at the time, I couldn't tell you what it is now because it's changing all the time. But so we did, we dove in and we made sure we were, cultivating relationships with people who had an audience that would like us as well. That makes sense.
What advice would you give to somebody who wants to pursue that kind of collaboration, right? To like promote their content? Because I imagine it's just, you can't just go to someone and just be like, hey, I have this cool video. Can you post about it? And like not offer anything in return, just sucking all of the value out of the other person. So I'm wondering like what advice would you give to somebody who wants to kind of take that approach to getting their content in front of people?
Well, first of all, it's a brilliant approach because as content creators, the one thing we all have to produce is content, and it's hard to keep up, right? I mean, we all can kind of attest to that. Like right now, our content has slowed way down because there's just one of us. Someone's, on maternity leave, and that's just, you have to do that. But so not seeing someone in your space as competition, seeing them as an opportunity to partner, and kind of moving past that competitiveness of it. Because, for example, in our Enneagram content on YouTube, the only other real competitor in our space is a woman named Abby Howe, who's brilliant. And she does a lot of Enneagram education, but she also does funny videos. And we found each other pretty early on, and we've partnered with her several times. And our audience is the same person. So, tapping into that and realizing anytime I share something, it benefits her and vice versa. And really leaning into those people who you might look at as competitors, figuring out who they are, but then following them, commenting them, liking their stuff. It's like how I would approach PR too, is you find those journalists that you want to pick up your story or cover your client, and you stroke their ego, right? You get in and you follow them and you like their content. You just compliment and, offer just, kind of cut to the top of their radar with that you enjoy their work. And then at some point you slip in the request. But at that point, they know you as someone who's supportive, right? So not to expect it overnight. Like I just posted my first video on, let's say, Enneagram comedy. And I know Leeann and Michelle do this. Certainly they'll want to share it. And we've had people do that, and they have like 7 views on their YouTube channel. And it's not that I wouldn't come alongside and support them, but that is clearly an ulterior motive. Whereas someone who's put the work in and has built the audience and genuinely just wants to collaborate for the sense of benefiting both of our audiences and your platform makes a lot more sense. But you cannot go into it expecting nothing to just get and not give. So there has to be kind of that yin and yang there. And then also being, knowing who your audience is. So for us, we know, it's a woman in her mid 30s who's a mom, maybe late 30s, and we kind of know. And so I'm always kind of looking to see who's the new meme mom out there. There's always a meme, who are posting funny things. And, so that I'll reshare, like just today on our Instagram channel, I reshared a funny little quote from another funny mom account. Again, could be seen as competition, but I don't see it that way. And they sent me a DM, thanks for sharing. And, at some point I might ask them to share something, I might not, but it's just that kind of attitude of we're all here to bring joy to people for a minute and, and looking for people who will share your audience. So, complimenting them and lifting them up. And then, in the effort that maybe later that might be returned, would be my advice, but to definitely pursue that strategy because it's brilliant and it really does work. And we've grown our platform so much by that. I'll give you another example. So when we started getting into the Enneagram, that was not what we started with. We started with parodies and mom sketches and stuff. There's an account on Instagram, what used to be called Enneagram and Coffee. And now she's changed it to her name, Sarah Jane Case, but like 500,000 followers. It grew overnight. It's just like funny quotes about the Enneagram. And, we followed them, and I noticed she had no video content on her Instagram page. So I wrote to her and I said, she didn't know me from Adam. We didn't really have that substantial of a following either. And I said, hey, I noticed that you don't have any video content. We're going to start producing funny Enneagram videos. Would you want to collaborate with us? And you can post our videos to your page, just tag us. You don't have to pay for it. We'll just kind of collaborate on this. And she loved that idea. And she shared a ton of our content over the years and has been responsible for a lot of our platform growth. And that was simply meeting a need for her because she just wasn't doing video, but obviously video was helpful to grow that platform base. So that kind of stuff, I don't know how you would grow your base without doing that. Yeah. I mean, unless you pay for people, which we all know is not good.
I mean, and there's a tendency, I think, to just rely solely on like the algorithms, but the algorithms giveth and they take it, right? If you're just
do. And they change every day. They're very
like what you were talking about in terms of Facebook, right? It changes all the time, and so you have to kind of keep thinking about different ways to reach that audience. And not necessarily rely solely on the algorithm. There are many different ways to do it. And what you're talking about too, it's just such a powerful way of looking at content creation. And I think that's the beauty of the internet that gets overlooked because there's a lot of negativity around the internet, and rightfully so. There are really bad things that have come about thanks to the internet over the last few years. But at the same time, just that ability to connect with people and collaborate with people and know that there's infinite amount of room for everyone that's all that matters. It's very different. I imagine, you can relate. This is very different from like being in journalism where it's very like competitive, cutthroat, like you're trying to get that. There's only one anchor spot in San Francisco or New York. Like how many different TV stations are there? So you're gunning for that one spot. Whereas on the internet, again, it's limitless. Yeah.
And I wish I would have tapped into that earlier. I look at people who were journalists who kind of got in early on the blogging and YouTubing and stuff. And because obviously the longer you do it, the longer you're there, the bigger your platform grows. But because you're right, it's so competitive. And coming from journalism, I think that probably, I haven't really thought about this actually, but that probably had to kind of die off from me because I'm so competitive in nature. I think I probably have had some moments where I was at first offended. Oh, you're doing the same thing I'm doing or something similar. Instead of seeing it as, no, this is something we can work on together because of that. And for me, it was, obviously the jobs, but also the story. So there's only one interview that's the get interview and I'm getting it and you're not, this is kind of thing, but it's not, you're right. It's the opposite. You have to work together with people who, you could see as competition, but they really shouldn't see it that way.
Exactly. Now, I do want to ask you too, you alluded to this a moment ago about your videos going viral. And there is another video in particular that I want to touch base with you on that did very well. I'm a fan of her show. I think you know who I'm talking about. But when your videos did go viral, what was that feeling like? It's just overwhelming, is it not? Like to just see just the amount of views just piling up, essentially like overnight.
It was breathtaking really in the first time it happened because it was just like, it's validating because, you think something's funny and it's vulnerable to put it out there. Just, that first video that went viral, I'm literally like in a pink wig walking down a major street in Phoenix with a pink tutu. Like you're putting yourself out there looking ridiculous to get a laugh and people are resonating with it and loving it and sharing it and you're making them smile. And it was just, and then, then some peripheral benefits come from that with interviews and media coverage. And it was crazy and it was fun and it was validating in the sense that I had, for me personally, I had this unmet need for a creative release for so long. And I'm going to get emotional. I finally had the opportunity to put things out there and it was so well received. So it was humbling and validating and exciting, obviously. And then you just want to do more. Yeah. And then I think what you're referencing is our Joanna Gaines video was the second one. That one went so well. And honestly, when Joanna Gaines wrote us a letter and mailed us presents, I could have died.
She mailed you presents too from like her Target collection?
She sure did. In fact,
is that some of the stuff in the background that I see?
No, I was looking to see if I had it, and it's upstairs in my I have a really pretty office upstairs, but my husband's working from home and he kicked me out of it and I'm down in the playroom.
Oh, that's funny.
It's upstairs, but I have it framed in a shadow box. She wrote us a handwritten note saying that she and Chip watched it multiple times, loved the video. And they had sent us this big box of all their, like, a bunch of stuff from their new Magnolia line at Target. And then Brene Brown, I don't know who she is. She commented on one of our videos. Like, those two things alone, I was like, okay, like, what else is there for me to do with my life? Like, see my children grow up? No. I've reached the pinnacle.
all you needed was, like, Matthew McConaughey to, like, comment on your video. You would have, like, the Texas trifecta of influence, celebrity influencers.
Should move to Texas. Yes. Need to do a Longhorn video.
That'll probably get them. Yeah. Do an anagram on like University of Texas football players or something. I don't know.
Perfect.
You could do that. Credit me as like the idea.
Or people running for governor of Texas.
Exactly.
There you go. The Enneagram types running for governor. It's all Matthew McConaughey.
Exactly.
Different roles.
Did you ever find out how she got your contact information, was able to reach out to you?
Her PR guy, he reached out to us. And it was funny because we kind of knew people who might be able to get it in front of her because it went viral and that was great, obviously, very exciting. But then it was like my mission in life was to make sure she saw it, or at least I wanted to know that she'd seen it. So I was, using my journalistic background and, not being afraid to ask anyone for a favor and, seeing if people could forward. And then it ended up being that they just saw it organically and then asked their PR person to contact us to send us those gifts. So it was just kind of ended up happening on its own, which was, made it even cooler, I think.
And for her to write a handwritten note, I mean, that says a lot about her to actually do that.
It really does. It really does. And then the gal who plays her in our video, we have a friend who happens to look a lot like her. She's done a few more videos with us too, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's Joanna Gaines again." So one of my other, not that I think we're way off Joanna's radar now, but I would love to have her meet her doppelganger someday.
Hey, you never know.
Maybe we could do a show for Magnolia and bring her on.
I know. Maybe you might, because they need content. Discovery Plus. Hit up Leeann and Michelle.
Don't think it hasn't crossed my mind, John. Don't think it hasn't crossed my mind.
That could be the next opportunity. You could be doing, I don't know, like House Hunters Enneagrams or something like that.
Right? Oh my gosh. Yes. Or just funny moms looking for, how that would be is like, is the pantry big enough for me to hide with Twizzlers? Okay. Yes. I like this house. Need to hide. Does the bathroom lock from the inside so my kids can't get to me? Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. I also want to touch base with you and ask you about just the process of filming your videos, right? Like for some of the videos, like the Joanna Gaines video that you did, it's not just you and Leeann in the content, right? Like you essentially have like a cast of people, of other actors essentially who are in those videos. So how do you go about casting for those roles, so to speak?
Yeah, one of my favorite ones is we did a parody of The Bachelor.
I watched that one too, yeah.
I'm basically interviewing like Weight Watchers and Nutrisystem and vegan and, like all the diets. And we had this whole cast of actors. That's where the Leeann and her husband kind of come in handy because that's an acting studio. And so they're really plugged into the acting community here. So basically, if we need anybody, from like a certain look, there's probably a student willing to do it for us for their resume, or we can pay them a pretty low rate or whatever it is. If we want to be fair and to working actors. But then actually we realized the benefit of having a crew to pull from as things were growing and we were having to amp up our production. And we have these what is right outside. He's getting the pooper scooper. Marry a man who will scoop the poop. That's pretty sexy. We realized the benefit of having kind of this like a dedicated pool of people to pull from who wanted to do it, who would make themselves available if the opportunity arose, especially because things were getting busy and we needed more bodies. And also, we're not blind. We are two very white women. And there's a world that needs to see women and moms of other shapes, sizes, colors, all that. And so we really wanted to diversify what we could offer our viewers and any clients that came. And so we put out a request and we had a bunch of women reply. And so now we have what we call our cold coffee comedy crew, because moms can never drink their coffee hot, right? It always gets cold. And it's a group of 7 women who have various backgrounds in comedy and writing, modeling, acting. And we pull from them, whenever when we have a shoot date coming up or something, we just say, hey, this is the role that we have if you're, willing and available. And that's been great because it just really helps us have that go-to. Because, any content creator who needs more than themselves or their partner in a video knows it can be hard to get people to commit, to come, to want to do it. And, sometimes you're begging. And now that we have people who applied and want to be a part of this, and it's kind of become a sweet little community of moms. That was a really wise move that we did last year in doing that, and we just love having them on board.
It must also be quite rewarding too to kind of like inject some life into the entertainment and acting scene out there in Phoenix, right? I mean, because we all know, like when you think about theater or entertainment, you think of either Los Angeles or New York, and you guys are kind of like carving out this little niche there for people who do that in their careers to have opportunities.
Yeah, it's interesting. Leeann's husband's actually written a book about this, about how if you want to be an actor, you don't have to live in LA or New York. And there are robust acting opportunities in most every city in the country. Obviously, they've kind of tapped into the commercial acting. There's a ton of commercials, national commercials that film here, and obviously local commercials too. Yeah. So that, and then also, I can't tell you how rewarding it is, just like you alluded to have these moms who, like one of our gals owns a restaurant. You know, we have another homeschooling mom. We've got, you know, mom who's a social worker in a hospital, you know, who need this creative outlet too, who then are adding to their acting resumes and using this to move their side hustle or, you know, their real dream forward. And it is great, but also just that, to put that word out there to encourage people, you don't have to live in LA or New York to do what you love, especially now in the world of social media and YouTube and TikTok and all these things being so readily available. And there are improv classes everywhere that you can take to help with that skill too. But then, I lost my train of thought. I got so excited about, but you know, it's an important thing, you know, to know that. And Leeann and I, unless something major happens, we're not leaving Phoenix. And so there have been missed opportunities because of that. And that's fine. But we have our boundaries pretty solidly set. And we have not ongoing conversations, but pretty regular conversations that come up with various groups or businesses about doing this or that here or there. And, you know, as long as we can film it in Phoenix, we're happy to do it, unless it's a very special circumstance and people have bent over backwards to make that happen, or they don't. And that's fine, because we can't compromise that. So and then to be able to pull in people locally and have them, you know, do some fun stuff with us.
Yeah.
Would be great
I
too.
mean, it probably gives you to a lot of leverage as well in like those negotiations as well, because you have those non-negotiables of like, hey, we'll do it if you come here to Phoenix. If they really, really want you, then they'll make it happen. Right.
Yeah. Now, I will admit it's harder for me because I'm willing, I'll hop on the next plane and go and do whatever. I'm up for an adventure. I love it. But at the same time, but Leeann is, like I said, we balance each other well. She's kind of brought me down a little bit. And like, there's certain things that I wanted to say yes to that she said no to. And we've had disagreements, honestly. But I realize now that I'm glad that we do have that boundary, because there is so much that we can do here. And we are so well connected to great creators and teams that can help us produce high quality stuff. And we don't have to go anywhere unless we had to host something, obviously, out of state. But, it's so easily done here. And the fact that we can control that. And I think people, respect the fact that we put our families first. And, you know, I need to be here. It's easier on my family for me to be here to help with kids, and Leeann obviously homeschool. So it's a real challenge for her to get out. And so, and people really do respect that from what we've seen. So, you know, for the few missed opportunities, having our sanity has been the greatest benefit.
I mean, I don't think that it's, you know, your sanity is not worth sacrificing for, like, you know, an opportunity that money comes and goes, but, you know, sanity is worth so much more than that. So
exactly.
You work with a videographer. You have a videographer / editor, correct? Your videographer also edits your videos. Tell me about the collaboration with your videographer / editor. How do you make that work between the three of you? So
Bonnie Selim is our videographer, and she's a gem. If she wasn't an adult and already married, we've tried to adopt her, but it's awkward, so she won't let us. So I kind of took her when I was doing PR. She was doing some videography for a client of mine, and I recognized, because of my background, how talented she was and how little she was charging them. And they had no kind of concept that they were she wasn't really utilized to her skill set there. And so when this started, I was like, Bonnie, come over here. So we kind of stole her. And so she's in her sweet spot. She loves the shooting, and because she started with us right from the beginning, the thing that's really nice is she gets our rhythm of our comedy. So she knows when to shoot. She knows when to cut the edit. It's just been such an easy balance. And I will admit, I like to control things. And so for me to find someone that I can work with who is okay with me, and we have Adobe Premiere with a shared account, so I can jump in and see what she's doing and help edit. And I have that skill set too, so I can edit. And she, you know, we have a good rhythm where we communicate really well. And it's worked out. You know, it's been hard sometimes because, you know, we feel really strongly that people need to be paid what they're worth. And she definitely she knows this. She still undercharges us. But, you know, at this point we're a little family. So it's all worked out in the end, even through COVID and everything. But it's just worked out really well. Personality has meshed really well. She's super easygoing. She prefers being behind the camera. She has the skill set. So it just worked out well. And I think it was just the fact that I had the eye from my journalism background for someone who is talented at that I was able to kind of spot her and yank her in.
Yeah. I mean, it's sometimes I know from, working in journalism and being in the creative field myself and collaborating with other creators, like you have a tendency to undervalue yourself because I guess you're taught for so long, like you don't make money doing this. Like, this from journalism, right? Like they tell you that, you're not going to make that much money. Like you should probably go over to the sales and like do advertising if you want to make buku bucks.
It's true.
But now we're seeing these things happen with content creation. Like I was joking earlier about like that 20-year-old Gen Zers selling an NFT for $5 billion. I mean, it's a joke, but it's like, it's a real thing where now you can actually, monetize and create opportunities for yourself.
Right. And I think too, that the thing that I've noticed that's been great, it seems like content creators have been pretty unified in demanding to be paid. And, and kind of saying like, hey, if you want me to, and we've had so many people like, we'll send you sneakers if you'll do a video on them. Like, no, I'm sorry, but my video is not worth $49.99. And just standing firm on that. And again, losing opportunities, or I really wanted those sneakers. They're nice. But knowing that, no, my video costs this much. And I have said, sorry, not sorry to so many people, but I feel like a lot of other content creators are doing that too. And so now finding those companies that are willing to pay a fair rate is getting easier because people have been consistent in that. And that's one of the reasons why I think it is becoming lucrative is because people are willing to take a stand on that.
And you're not having to deal with any gatekeepers now. Is being independent on your own. You're like the master of your own destiny at this point.
Right.
So the only gatekeepers are the platforms and their silly algorithms from time to time. But
I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the platforms, but I still want to go back to the time sequenced Instagram. I miss that. But
I think we all do chronologically. It's just so weird to think that was so long ago now.
Yeah, I know. And I'll look at something and I'll be like, this was posted 2 days ago. I'm like, what? What is this stuff that was posted today? Like, what is this?
Well, Michelle, one of the last things I want to touch base with you on is a little bit on the business side of things. And you mentioned that you are, of the two of you, you're kind of the business focused one. Why is that? What is it about the business side of things that you're able to gravitate to that?
It's just personality types. I am focused and goal oriented and not afraid to kind of dive in. And I'm a high capacity person. So the amount of balls I can keep in the air is more than the average person. Not to brag. That's just me. And Leeann is different and likes being different. She doesn't want to have a lot of balls in the air. And honestly, we almost went to rock, paper, scissors about who was going to do the budget and handle the money because neither one of us really wanted to do it. But then we came to the realization that Leeann would just never do it, and I would at least do it. So I do that, and then it just allows us to play to our strengths. So by me taking on this stuff that it's not necessarily what I'm gifted at, but I'm willing to do it, and I don't mind doing it. It frees up her mental space to do what she's good at. And it just has worked for us. So I'm the one who goes to the conference. Like I said, I'm the extrovert. I go to the conferences. I network. I get the information. And I love that. And she would rather stay home with her babies and write comedy. And that benefits us. So it's worked out. But like, she would be a delightful person to have in the conversation. But as far as like business stuff on YouTube, she'd be like, I don't know, Michelle, what are we doing? So, and I think, not everybody, I would be so curious to talk to creators who don't have a partner, because that would be so much to do. That would be really daunting. And so the fact that we have each other is... Yeah,
that is something that I wanted to ask you about as well. Like imagining yourself doing this on your own, it seems like something that you really can't imagine, because you're able to kind of share the successes and share like the burdens with each other, which makes it much more manageable, I guess, as a creator, right?
Yeah, it does. And it just, I think also in the beginning, putting yourself out there comedically and knowing that you're opening up yourself to criticism and trolls and, all that stuff, having a buddy to walk through that was also just really confidence building. And 4 years ago, if something happened and Leeann decided she didn't want to do this, I would have been absolutely devastated and could have never done it on my own. But, walking through this journey together, now I'm having to do some stuff solo because she's, keeps having babies. And I keep saying, she's got to stop this. And, she's going to stop. But they're real cute. Okay. So I'm supportive, but, you talk about confidence, but it wasn't a confidence thing or a nerve thing. It was, more of a imposter syndrome, so if I put something solo out, people like Leeann more than they like me. So it's probably not going to do well. I don't have that feeling anymore as much because we're established and we're fine. It's same with the competing thing. There's some things that she's going to do on her own on our channel. And there's some stuff that I'm going to do on my own on our channel. And that's fine. And if one gets more views than the other, it doesn't really matter. It's all going into the same bank account. So, it's kind of that. I have a lot more confidence than I did, but I would not want to do this without a partner for so many reasons. Obviously, being able to play to each other's strengths is one of them. And then also just as a comedian, I feel like it's so much easier to be really bold and really out there when someone else is doing it too.
Exactly.
We can both look like fools together.
You get that shared experience with each other. And there, you mentioned there about like dealing with negativity and blowback from time to time. I'm sure you've had that as videos have gone viral. Yeah. Could you tell me about how you coped when those moments came? I mean, again, having like a shoulder to lean on in Leeann, I'm sure helped out a lot when, the trolls came out to play. Yeah.
Honestly, it affects Leeann a lot more than it affects me. I guess maybe my news background, I'm kind of accustomed to negativity and I have very thick skin. So a lot of it, Leeann had to stop reading comments when the viral videos, especially because the multi-level marketing one had a lot of negative feedback from people in MLMs who didn't get the humor. But, and so I would kind of would then relay comments to her that were positive or constructive. And if you look at our YouTube comments, you'll see people commenting, we know you read these and you look for feedback. I think on this number, you could, you missed this mark. And we really appreciate that. The negative comments affect Leeann and my mom more than they affect me. I think, I don't know if that's the news background, but I just realized that people feel a lot more confident behind a keyboard but we haven't really had that much negativity. Again, because I think people see the fact that we're just trying to be funny and our humor, for the most part, steers clear of really hotly debated topics on purpose. We don't want to alienate people. We want to bring people together. So, that's for the most part has been something that we haven't really, thankfully, dealt with to an extreme level.
I know it can be just difficult for some people when, I think most of the time the negativity it's out there, but relative to like the positive feedback I'm sure you get, it's probably a minuscule amount, but it's just that like one negative comment to like throw you off for a loop, like
it's always one. Like can be 99 good ones and there's always one that like, that's the one you keep thinking about. But you can't focus on the one negative. You have to think about the long run. And relating this to PR, we've talked about a couple times, public relations is a long-term game. It is, you're making decisions now where you want to see yourself in 5 to 10 years. And it's the same with that. And if you focus on all the negativity, you're not going to move forward. So, obviously if you have a lot of negativity, maybe there's something to work on, but for the most part, just focusing on the positive and continuing to move forward is the best thing to do in my opinion.
Well, Michelle, I think that is a great way to wrap up this conversation. You can, put a bow on this and end it on a high note with the very wise and eloquent words that you offered there. So I want to thank you again for coming on the podcast. Hopefully we can do round 2 with Leeann once she's off of maternity leave at some point, get her perspective on things, find out what you were, find out what you might have been like exaggerating about and find out.
I see what you're saying now.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But no, honestly, this was a very fun conversation for me. I'm glad that we managed to connect here and make the time to do this.
Yes, likewise. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I mean, sometimes, we feel like, why would you want to talk to me? What do I have to offer? But hopefully there's something in there that people can use to go out there and create great content and that we all can benefit from. So thank you for your time. Thank you for what you're doing, encouraging us creators to learn from each other and get out there and keep doing what we're doing. I really appreciate you.
Thank you again to my guest this week, Michelle Fortin, for joining me on this episode of the Videocraft Show presented by Video Husky. Before all of you go, I have got a couple quick things for you. First and foremost, if you want to get all the information and everything that we discussed in this conversation, you can find the show notes for this episode at www.videocraftshow.com. We've got links to our entire archive of episodes there as well. And if you are a content creator, a video creator to be specific, that is struggling to organize and script your ideas, we have got something for you. Just get a copy of our free script template. Using it can help you structure your videos and save you hours of time from filming in the process. To download it, all you have to do is go to videocraftshow.com or scroll down to the description here on the YouTube video for those of you that are watching on YouTube, and you can click the link to sign up to our email list. Just enter your name and enter your email, and we will deliver that straight to your inbox right after you sign up. And if you're enjoying the podcast, make sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever it is that you can get your podcasts. You know, to be honest, I don't even know if you can you actually review podcasts on other platforms? Let me know in the comments below, because that's been our call to action for like since the beginning of this podcast. So let me know if there are other platforms that you can rate and review. But the point is, we are always looking to hear from you, get feedback from you. So whatever you want to do in terms of feedback, whether it's positive or negative, feel free to leave that in a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever it is that you can review podcasts. And finally, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit the like button as well. Helps with the YouTube algorithm and gets this show in front of more creators just like you. And leave us a comment too. We are looking at all of them. We're paying attention to all of them, and we are engaging with them too. Don't forget to subscribe to our show here on YouTube if you haven't already. Gotta thank the team for hooking it up with the great production and editing on this episode as always. Of course, my producer Nikki, editor Ingrid, as well as graphics by Paolo. And if you would like your videos to look just like this, edited to a T, then Video Husky can help you. For more information, just visit videohusky.com to learn more. I'll be back next week on another episode, another edition of the Videocraft Show presented by Video Husky.